Hello.
Hello, we're
This
back.
this Friday, you're gonna take us to the modern day Turkey
Yes,
for this ancient mystery, and you're gonna tell us a little bit about what is the name of this city.
it's called Derinkuyu,
Okay.
and it's a marvel of engineering. It's tremendous. It's an underground city.
And this is in modern day Turkey.
Correct, in the area of Cappadocia. And the bottom line here is just to throw it out there, they don't know who built it. They think the Hittites did it. But, you know, that means that it would have had to have been built 3,500 years ago. And there's some conflicting information saying that it could be a lot older than that. Okay? But just to put things into perspective for people that don't know about underground cities or that never heard about Derinkuyu and stuff like that, because they can be far off, you're saying, no, you're talking about an ancient city and this and that. During the Vietnam War, there were tunnels that the Vietnamese were using in the war against the Americans, and they were extremely successful. And they were killing Americans left and right.
Yeah.
And the only way to deal with them was to blanket bomb the area. But these tunnels were built in the early 40s while the French were occupying Vietnam, and the Vietnamese wanted to get rid of them. So they built this intricate tunnel system. And I'm telling you that they had areas to treat patients, they had areas for food, they had an intricate tunnel system that was built in the 40s. So
1940s.
in the 40s, yeah, 1940s. So it's not the first time that we see tunnels being built. The Vietnamese did it. The Chinese did it. So, it's not a foreign thing to
El
think
Chapo
of.
did it.
El Chapo did it. Jesus, yeah. So, but I'm talking about recent type,
Yeah.
right? So the Vietnamese had done it, and it's very interesting because the terrain of fighting, you think, if you got a guy that's 6'3" and very muscular, that guy will win the fight. Well, he couldn't get into the tunnels. The tunnels were built in a way that very thin people will go through it, and short people. And some of the entrances were camouflaged. And even put like deadly scorpions in the entrances and poisonous snakes and
Traps.
poisonous centipedes. And this is during the Vietnam War. And traps, bombs that would be triggered off, And they would also do false entries. So it's not the first time that we're talking about underground tunnels. Now, let's go to Derinkuyu
Right, because this is not a tunnel. This is an underground
city. But these Vietnamese created somewhat of a
You could say.
city under
Yeah.
there too.
Okay.
It housed a bunch of them. But Derinkuyu is an underground city that was discovered because a gentleman was doing a remodeling of his house, and he took a sledgehammer to one of the walls, and when that wall came down, he saw that it was an opening into a cave.
Right.
And he said, hey, I'm going to walk it. And he started walking, and he got his flashlight and started walking. And before he knew it, he had gone 150 feet. And he had come to an opening where there were several other passages that he could take. And then he said, you know what, this is a little bit too much. So he ended up calling the authorities. And the city of Derinkuyu had been somewhat of a myth, in Turkey. And they ended up finding it. And this was the way they found it. It was very interesting.
And I had heard something also about he was losing his chickens or something, that they were going into this hole and he'd never find them.
Yeah.
But
Well, there are 200 cities, underground cities.
okay.
They're estimating there's about 200 of them.
Like a network.
It's a network of cities.
Amazing.
And Derinkuyu has a sister city that it can be connected with. If you travel underground in Derinkuyu, from end to end, you're gonna walk 4 miles. Okay, I don't know exactly what that is in kilometers, but they also give that distance. But we're talking about 4 miles of walking from end to end. When I started reading about Derinkuyu, okay, the archaeologist said that it was like
In kilometers, I think it's close to double. Close to
okay.
double. Yeah.
So when I started reading about Derinkuyu, at the time I started reading, they said it was 10 stories. Okay, so now, so that would be about 100 feet deep.
Okay.
Now, with all the years that have gone by, it's 250 feet deep. So it's more than 18 stories. When I started reading about it, it was 10 stories deep.
18-story building.
More than 18 stories deep.
Yeah, my mind goes to like, I think of like certain hotels are
Incredible.
Right, like in Las Vegas, the MGM Grand, you see it's 30 stories or something like that. So 18 stories, but underground.
Right. But it's even more than the MGM, because what happens is that it's a complete fort. Okay, it was done for preservation, and it's completely underground, but it's just absolutely massive, and all the floors are interconnected, but they build it with a defense mindset. Whereas if they were attacked from above, okay, each floor could be independently sealed from the other, and the enemy would be left on top. They are such engineering geniuses that underneath, you go down 250 feet, they have natural water streams flowing. So they had water to supply every floor, but it was from the bottom up.
Right.
So if somebody got in to invade them from the top, they could seal the floor and still have flowing water. And they had, it's incredible. They have churches in there. They have bakeries in there. They have an area for, I think, like for 50 horses. It's just incredible.
Yeah, they had area to hold your food, right?
Yes, hold the food.
I think even burial, like a place to
Yeah, they had
dispose.
libraries, they had bakeries, they had a winery. All this has been documented.
And they're like caves, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So the way that I've read is that Turkey had, the geology in this area is very unique because there were a lot of volcanoes. And when the volcanoes erupt, this eruption with time solidifies and turns into a rock that I believe is called tuff. And tuff is very porous and easy to work with. Okay? And so they built these cities out of this type of rock. Which
carved
is
into
carved.
the rock.
Right. Underneath. And so it's just an engineering genius because the rock is easy to work with, but you also need to maintain in your mind while you're building this the integrity of those columns. So the columns, what I've seen, come up from a base and end up in a base. They're not just straight columns.
Like a tree looking.
Like a tree looking thing. It comes up like from roots and ends up in a base. And I think that's part of what gives it its strength. But they had to know, like you talk about tensile strength in steel. They had to know just how much to carve.
Right.
So that these columns would not collapse onto themselves.
Right.
Because you got, floors of cities. You're talking about 18 floors deep at least. Okay? And it's just a tremendous city. It's historical as can be. It's a testament to, we really don't know a lot about our ancient past.
Yeah.
Look, listen to this. They had doors that were circular in shape, okay? And these doors weighed approximately over 1,000 pounds each. And one of the characteristics of these doors is that they had like a little ramp, and the door would roll down into position. Once that door, that circular 1,000-pound rock, rolled into position, the people that were on the other side, let's say on the outside, would never be able to open it, because it was engineered in a way that only the people could open it from the inside. Okay? Now, it's mind-blowing.
Right.
And that's why I'm interested in all these mysteries, and I love to read about them, and I've spent an unforeseen amount of time of my life, going into this. And some people say I'm crazy, and maybe I am.
So
well, maybe I am a little crazy. You are a little. But I love reading about this kind of stuff. So these mysteries absolutely fascinate me.
So they're saying that, conventional, when you look it up, like on the BBC, and we'll link it, it says it housed around 20,000 people.
Over 22,000 people lived there.
And that it was built just close to 2,000 years ago.
Well,
right?
I don't believe that.
That's what they're saying initially.
Yeah, I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
No.
Because who built it? There's a lot of question on who built it. Why did they build it?
Well, they built it to get away from the surface. They built it to hide.
To hide.
And to survive.
Right. What were they hiding from?
Okay. So that's a very interesting question. But I don't believe that the Hittites built it.
Okay.
Even though they have found hieroglyphics and also some sculptures, like they didn't find a Lamassu, but they found sculptures that belong to the Hittites. Okay. But what I think, and many other people think after reading so much about this stuff, and then I'm no expert, I am no expert, they believe that the Hittites occupied it.
Right.
That they came and found it, and then they took advantage of everything that city had to offer to protect themselves from invading armies. Mm-hmm. The Hittites were always fighting the Egyptians. They were fighting the Assyrians. They were fighting people. Mm-hmm. Okay, the Hittites. Yeah. And so and of course they were in there, no doubt about it, and they carved some of their hieroglyphics into them, and they controlled that area for quite a few years. Mm-hmm. So most definitely they occupied it. But then there's also proof that the Christians occupied it to save themselves from Roman persecution. So there were a lot of civilizations that have used this over the years. But I don't think that it was, 2,000, 3,500 years ago.
Right.
If you know anything about Göbekli Tepe,
which is also in Turkey.
I don't know, I think it's 200 miles away from this place, Derinkuyu, or maybe 100 miles away. Göbekli Tepe has been proven, scientifically proven, that it was built 12,000 years ago. It has changed the historical landscape of, our evolution. Okay?
Right, because they built those structures, they carved
12,000 years
boulders.
ago.
Right. And it's a megalithic structure.
They're megalithic structures. It's way bigger than the place in England.
Stonehenge?
Stonehenge. Yeah, way bigger than Stonehenge. Right. And it's only like 10% or 8% excavated.
Yeah.
They know what's underneath the ground because they use penetrating radar and echo things to figure out. Look at the immense thing. And not only that, Göbekli Tepe, proven. It was built 12,000 years ago. It was covered up on purpose. They built it. Mm-hmm. And then they buried it. On purpose. So there's a lot of questions as to who built this. And I don't think the Hittites built it. I think the Hittites could have done something, because there's, in Turkey, the Hittites did build some tremendous structures. Okay? But I just think that this was built prior to.
So it's interesting you bring up Göbekli Tepe, also in Turkey.
Yes.
Because
I want to
if
go
they-
to Turkey. It's a magical place.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
If they were able to, since they were able to build Göbekli Tepe 12,000 years ago, and there's a couple other there's Göbekli Tepe and there's another one very close by.
Yeah, Karahan Tepe or something like that.
Right, which also is amazing. That's the one that I think has that face of, it looks like some sort of human face or something that
Okay.
in a snake head. I don't know if you remember that
okay,
one. Really
okay.
weird looking. But if they were able to do that 12,000 years ago, could these whoever built that, could they have also built this city,
Derinkuyu.
Derinkuyu?
That's what I think. Because it's just they're engineering geniuses, Mike. I mean, just
Yeah.
think about it. Derinkuyu, the city of Derinkuyu, has 16,000 air shafts. Okay? Get that through your thick skull. 16,000 air shafts. So that if they discovered one, air shaft and covered it, they would think that they would suffocate. No, they got,
Right.
15,999 more. It's just an amazing place.
And many entrances, right? Over
They-
600 entrances?
60.
Oh,
The-
60.
So
60.
there was one main entrance, but near the surface, there are around 60 entrances. But once they close from within inside, they look like the geology of the place. You would not know that there was an entrance in this mountain, okay? Because it looks just like the rock that surrounds it. I mean, it is unbelievable, okay? You close it up, it's airtight.
Yeah, I'm
okay?
looking
By
at-
the way, they have some of this stuff also. There are a couple, they just discovered, or a few years back, they discovered something in India.
Mm-hmm.
They always thought it was just a mountain, a rocky mountain, and now they realize that there's a big, huge door there, and they were able to open that. And yeah, that's the geology of the place.
When you look at the geology, because a lot of pictures when you Google Derinkuyu are of the inside, and it looks like an ant farm, they say.
Right,
All the little caves, right?
right.
But, which an ant farm is amazing. How do ants know how much to dig up before it caves in on itself?
The animal kingdom.
So
We're no match for any of these. No match whatsoever.
But when you look at this, it just looks like mountainous area.
Right,
Right.
because the volcanoes erupted, and when the ash dried up, or whatever, the volcano, what do you call it, the magma dried up, it turns into this type of rock that's called tuff, Tuff.
Okay.
And it's easy to work with, but that's also a double-edged sword because it's porous.
Maybe brittle.
But-
Yeah.
Yeah, so you need to know the material you're working with. You need to know how strong you're gonna do it. I mean, it's just
So
an incredible sight. Okay.
yeah, I read here actually this is the BBC. Is this the BBC one? Yeah, and we'll link it on the description. It says that it actually has, upon closer investigation and some digging, the Turk unearthed a dark passageway. It was the first of more than 600 entrances found
Oh,
within private homes, leading to the subterrestrial city of Derinkuyu.
600?
600.
That's amazing.
But these are
within private homes.
600 entrances found within private homes.
That's crazy.
It's
See,
amazing.
What I have read is that there are like 60 superficial. Yeah, no, it's incredible. It's an incredible place.
Yeah, well, we'll link it on the description, but that's amazing. That's amazing.
So the question is, who built it?
Who built it?
What were they hiding from?
Why did they build?
Why did they build it? And there's this theory that the Earth got hit with a comet, and it created this younger Dryas kind of situation. You guys can look it up. Okay, again, we're no expert. And this was approximately 12,000 years ago. It's linked to a lot of stories. Okay, if you start reading about ancient histories like these,
The floods.
The floods. And so, this was what's called a deep freeze. And so if we got hit by a comet and the temperatures plummeted, you would not be able to live above ground. So some people believe that this ancient civilization that was
very advanced,
extremely advanced, went underground. And this period of time, I think, lasted, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around 1,200 years. So you had to, if the temperatures above ground are way below freezing, you're not going to be able to do anything up there. You hit there, and you would be able to, 22,000 people or so, 1,200 years down there. I mean, it would, we just don't know. There are more questions than there are answers.
Well, when you bring up that it's a mysterious city, because no matter what you read, it says we actually don't know who built it.
Oh, for sure.
Right. There's thought that it was
the Hittites
and other groups. The pyramids, same thing. Mexico, Teotihuacan specifically, they don't know who built it.
Right.
They know that the Aztecs, I believe, came in and used it, but they didn't build it.
Right. So some of these people have used, like, for example, in one of the books that I read, the Hittites were thought of as, all these civilizations, all these people were really smart, okay? They were much more in contact with nature and the universe than we are today. We are in contact with our cell phones and this and that is a bunch of baloney, okay?
Yeah.
But these people were in contact with the world, with nature, okay?
The stars.
The stars. They were brilliant. And so, but some of them had certain characteristics. For example, if I'm not mistaken, the Hittites were characterized as, they were good engineering people, but they were also fighters. Warriors. But the Phrygians, I think, are the ones that took them down. And they were thought of as engineering geniuses. And they were prior to the Hittites. So, or around the same time, right? But they're saying, hey, the Phrygians could have built it. They certainly could have. Because there's some things in Turkey that have been built by the Phrygians that it's also an engineering marvel. However, there are some people that believe that it goes way back, that the time frame that we currently have on it of 3,000 to 3,500 years ago, more or less, is way off. And that this, being in such proximity to Göbekli Tepe, and having been scientifically proven that that's 12,000 years old, they're saying, hey, you know what? It's not a far stretch to say that this has been here 12,000 years or so.
And one of the things with Göbekli Tepe, like you mentioned, it was intentionally buried, covered up. Some people said, was that done like a time capsule? We built this, covered it. Was it, ceremonial grounds?
Well, let me throw this at everybody. And you guys go do your own research. Go ahead.
One thing that the reason we know it's 12,000 years old is because since they intentionally buried it, there are items you can carbon date.
Right. Which
apparently you cannot do this with rock.
You can't.
But you can if there's organic
some kind of
material.
Organic. There you go.
So that's why we know Göbekli Tepe is 12,000 years old.
You got it.
We don't know how old Derinkuyu is because
you can
maybe carbon date if you find items.
You can carbon date
there.
the rock, yeah.
Yeah, if you find items.
Right. So there's this guy in the University of Edinburgh. His first name is Martin. I don't remember his last name, but I know that his first name is Martin, and he's from the University of Edinburgh, and he's a scientist. And he has been studying Göbekli Tepe a lot. And let me just throw this out there, and you guys Do your own research. But this Martin gentleman, can't remember his last name. He has said that because Göbekli Tepe has pillars that are like 16 and 18 feet tall. But
and extremely heavy.
Oh yeah, but they also have carvings in the pillars.
Yeah.
And the carvings tell a story.
Right.
And according to this scientist from Edinburgh, he says that there's one particular pillar that tells a story of comets hitting the earth.
Mm.
And that he has interpreted the carvings on this particular megalithic what is it, a tower
Structure.
structure.
Yeah, these are pillars. Yeah.
Pillars of this pillar. It tells a story of a comet hitting the earth and then tremendous turmoil after that. And so I leave it up to you guys to get involved in it and go through the rabbit hole that I've been in and read yourself into oblivion like I have. But it's a lot of fun because the more you read, the more questions you have, and the more you find out, the more other questions come up.
Yep.
But there's no refuting that the city is there. You can visit it.
The 600 entrances,
It's there.
the way it's built, all of these things. It's 18 floors so far, right? Because they keep discovering more.
I mean, when I found out about Derinkuyu and started reading about it, it was only like 100 feet deep or something like that, because like 10 floors. I remember, and now they're saying, well, wait a minute, it's 250 feet deep, so it's over 18 floors deep,
right?
And over 4 miles. And then there's a sister city, another one of these underground cities that you can connect to.
Wow.
So if they needed to escape, they knew how to get to it. It's amazing.
It seems like, because I was listening to, and Graham Hancock has talked about Derinkuyu, Göbekli Tepe a ton. He credits another gentleman for the Göbekli Tepe.
Oh yeah, it was a German archaeologist, Mr. Schlingt, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's passed away.
Right.
But he was a very serious, very tremendous record. German archaeologist, yeah. He realized from the moment that he saw, because a farmer saw a rock sticking out of his ground, out of his farm, and then they started digging around it and they found, hey, this is kind of big. So they brought this German archaeologist,
Klaus Schmidt.
Klaus Schmidt. And from the moment, to his credit, to this gentleman's credit, from the moment that he saw that rock, he said, there's something here that it's tremendous. And then he started digging, and he got funding
to it, right?
He dedicated his later life to it, yeah, because he got there when he was already older and he passed on.
But in the ancient,
and Graham Hancock talks very highly of this gentleman.
Yes, they went together, I believe.
Yes, well, he went to visit him. The guy dedicated his life to this thing, yeah.
And Graham Hancock, if you want to listen to more about it, Graham Hancock talks about it in the Ancient Apocalypse Netflix series.
Oh, okay.
He talks about Derinkuyu.
Oh, okay.
But this is amazing.
Oh.
It for me, it's like I have a greater appreciation for the people before us, the knowledge that they had, what they were able to build. Because you think about, this is thousands of years old. We don't know how many thousands of years old. Or who knows? Maybe it's even more than just thousands of years old. And look at the buildings that we've put up, modern day. Fast forward, what would last for thousands of years? You've mentioned it before that they say only the Hoover Dam and certain
the Hoover
structures.
Dam would be the last thing on Earth to be destroyed if we couldn't maintain the structures that we have built.
They'll disintegrate.
They will disintegrate into thin air eventually over the years. The Hoover
It
Dam
doesn't
would be
take
the
that
last
long.
thing to go.
It doesn't take that long.
No, it doesn't.
You can look at there's this video. I'll link it. It was of Cuba, and the Cuban government hasn't been able to maintain the buildings. The
Everything is in shambles.
buildings. They're literally and this lady goes through. This person goes through with a camera, walks the cities.
It's very sad.
It's very sad, but those buildings are only a few hundred years old. I believe.
No, because I'm 64 years old and Castro took over, so.
Well, I'm talking about the Spanish colonial buildings. They were
Yeah.
built, but they were stopped being maintained.
But let's say
60
that,
years
right,
ago.
but let's say they're 100 years old.
Yeah, 100, 150, 200. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. Yeah, because the Spanish were in there, and they built these colonial cities.
Right,
I don't
right.
know if it was in maybe when exactly.
You might be right.
Right?
Yeah.
But
you might
but
be
they
right, 'cause
stopped
they were
maintaining them only 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Because the communist country didn't have money to do anything. And
So and these structures still stand. That's amazing. But they're underground. But then you look
Oh.
at the pyramids, and those are still standing, and those are thousands of years old.
Right.
We don't know. Also, that's debatable, right? How many thousand? Because conventional archaeologists, Egyptologists say that the Great Pyramid was built, 5,000 years ago
Well,
or so.
yeah, that's what they say, but that's up for interpretation big time.
Big time.
And the more we discover, the more we're thinking that's incorrect.
Right.
Because stop to think, look, there were 7 wonders of the world, okay, in the past. Out of the 7 wonders of the world, the Great Pyramid of Giza was one of them.
What are the ancient wonders?
Ancient 7 wonders of the world. It's the only one standing. All the other 6 wonders are gone, right? They were taken down either by earthquakes, fires, whatever. But those were built by men. Now,
Right.
who built the pyramids?
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me that the only wonder of the world that's standing was built with the same standards as the other 6? Then why didn't it crumble already? I don't know. Those are things that sometimes people say, because the other 6 are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
And you got pyramids in different parts of the world.
yeah,
How did
now
they know to build that structure?
right. Well,
Before-
supposedly the shape of the pyramid, I think there was this physicist that said the most stable type of design or structure is a pyramid. It is the most stable form of design. Something like that. And then you get into all kinds of other things, Mike. The location where the pyramid is built.
Right.
They're so-called ley lines, which are power lines, and the Chinese culture's got all kinds of information on that. And then,
Yeah.
they're, the astronomical signature of where they are, and they're matched to the cardinal points, and somebody knows what's going on, but the masses don't.
Right.
Okay, the masses don't, and we part of the masses. We're the common folk.
Well, what's cool about Turkey is it seems they're allowing them to investigate. They've allowed them, or excavate. They've allowed them to do these LiDAR. I don't remember what other laser. LiDAR is the laser one. So they have like a schematic now of Derinkuyu.
Oh, that's crazy.
They're allowing Egypt. I think they put a stop to a lot of the excavations.
Yeah, from what I read, I think that Egypt has a lot of red tape.
Yeah.
To do this and that, and I think the pendulum swings, because I know that in the past going to Egypt and excavating mummies was a thing of the Europeans that they wanted to do all the time, and so they went in there and they ransacked a lot of stuff, and they dynamited things, and they messed up archaeological things, and so I can understand where the government puts the brakes on, because we're destroying stuff.
Sure.
In the goal of just bringing up 1 or 2 items or whatever, we're destroying a lot of things, and so I can understand that, but
Sure.
I think it's gone potentially too far, because there's a lot of control, and I don't really know. But yeah, but no, this city is it's incredible.
Incredible.
16,000 air shafts. I mean, so many levels, storages for all kinds of things. They even had churches, bakeries underneath the city.
How long were they down
Winery.
there? You know.
Yeah, how long were they down there? They were down there for a long time. And they're saying that
Without
the
light.
Hittites probably did it. Some other group says the Phrygians did it. They both had engineering aspects. The Phrygians were apparently gifted engineering wise, but you know, all these
But if you're down there for go ahead.
the Assyrians, all these guys were warriors.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Conquering lands.
Yeah, so there's so much history overlapping in the Cappadocia area. I mean, this is a land that was very fruitful. It was also in the trade. It was a very important area for trade, and anybody that controlled the trade controlled the money and the growth, and so they were always fighting for this piece of real estate. All these kinds of
If you if you're underground, what's your food source? How long? You have no light. How did they use light? How did they get? How did they get food? How did they survive?
well, they in the lowest level there was a flowing river, so potentially you could grow plants, and thereby have some
But
fruits.
you need sun.
Yes. The other thing is you could have chickens. They had stables for horses, so they definitely had animals, and potentially they had the pigs and this. So, but yeah, those are
Interesting.
questions that are. How do you do it?
Were they able to come out for short periods, go back in? I mean, yeah, we don't know, but it's definitely interesting. Thank you for sharing.
The little I know, and
No, and
you
you've
know,
been-
motivate some people to go out there and.
Absolutely. I would say most people don't even know this city exists.
Right.
Göbekli Tepe. A
Right.
lot of people don't know these cities exist. So
Yeah, I don't. My friends, I don't talk to my friends about this kind of stuff because they're watching our videos, Mike, and they're going, "What on earth?" But I just love to read about these mysteries.
Yeah.
For some reason, it grabbed me, and I owe it all to Graham Hancock, and what's the other guy? Eric Von Daniken.
Yeah.
I read Eric Von Daniken's book in high school. It was called Chariots of the God. And that's the book that hooked me up.
that began your
That
quest.
back in high school, woof, a long time ago.
Well, anything else you want to throw in before we wrap it up?
No, we're good.
Very cool.
We're good. Remember, we're no experts. This is just for fun and motivate the minds out there.
Yeah, but it's good conversation.
It is.
Thank you.